Good morning. We are again looking at Proverbs, this time chapter 7. Chapter 7 and 8 are parallels. In chapter 7, Solomon again speaks about the adulteress, and in chapter 8, Solomon personifies wisdom as the woman that you should seek after. So the adulteress is the one you don't want, wisdom is the one you do want. And these two are held in contrast. The adulteress leads to death, wisdom leads to life. And Israel, which often sought after other gods, that would be adultery, often follows after what they think looks good, adultery, rather than going after wisdom where they would be protected and safe with God. So both of these are very much picture passages. English majors enjoy them. We will look at them and see what Solomon says. Chapter 7. My son, keep my words and store up my commands within you. Keep my commands and you will live. Guard my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. He starts with this theme again. Take the teachings of your elders, and more importantly, the teachings of God, and make them a part of you. Keep them here all the time. Now he's going to use a little colorful language to say the same thing. Verse 4, say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your kinsman. They will keep you from the adulteress, from the wayward wife with her seductive words. So your kinsmen, those are the ones who are always near you, right? You want to be around your family. You're often around your family. They look out for your interests. The same goes with the knowledge that God gives and the knowledge that our parents and our elders give. Looks out for interests and wants to be around us, and we want them around. Treat them like your sisters and brothers, like your very family. Now what do? They keep you from turning away and going after another man's wife, which leads to death. Okay? 6. Now we get very much a picture. At the window of my house, I looked out through the lattice. I saw among the simple. I noticed among the young men a youth who lacked judgment. So Solomon is peering out of his rich house, and he's watching what's occurring, kind of like people used to sit in the malls and watch people as they walk by, people watching, we would call it. He's doing some people watching. It's one way to gain wisdom, to understand people, is by observing them. And Solomon has spent many years observing people, and now he's trying to give that wisdom to the youth. He says, out of the crowd, he could tell that young man lacks judgment. It's interesting how we look at someone and we think, they have the signs, and those signs generally indicate that they're not following the path of wisdom. Now, we're not always right. We don't see to the heart like God does. But, in society, external things are what we use to make those judgments. And more often than not, they tend to be correct, which is one of the reasons I say to kids, if you're going to get all tattooed up and you're going to wear those sorts of clothing, don't expect to be treated terribly well. So anyway, he's looking down and he sees a young man who lacks judgment. He was going down the street near her corner, her being the adulteress, walking along in the direction of her house. At twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in. I've heard it said nothing good happens at 2 a.m. Darkness, people feel like their sins are covered in the dark. They're not going to be discovered. And so often people act in ways they wouldn't have in the light. And here this young man in the dark, or nearing dark, he's approaching this house of this woman who is not a nice lady. Okay, so 10. Then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute and with crafty intent. She wants to get something from him. And now it says she is loud and defiant. Her feet never stay at home. So a little bit about her character. She's not a person who respects her husband or her life. She's not a person who's content with the gifts that God has given or with the gifts her husband has earned. She's not content with her life. She's always looking somewhere else. Now in the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks, waiting to find someone who will fall into her trap. She took a hold of him and kissed him, and with a brazen face she said, I have fellowship offerings at home. Today I fulfilled my vows. So she went to the temple, and she gave some meat, and part of the meat was consumed, but the rest of the meat, and part of the meat went to the priest, but the rest of the meat from a fellowship offering went home with her. And she gave this meat to get right with God, supposedly, and yet here she comes home and does the exact things that get her wrong with God. So these are sacred religious things that are going to be used for improper purposes. And you could share this meat when you bring it back, the fellowship offering. You could share it with your family. You have to eat it within a day or two after you gave the offering in the temple, so often you do share it with family. 15. So I came out to meet you. I looked for you and have found you, because I need someone else to help me eat all this meat. I have covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. She's taken out the best sheets, and she has made it a pleasure palace. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon, things which are scents which are associated with the seraglio. Come, let's drink deep of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. Eat, drink, and be merry, right? My husband is not at home. Oh, well, that's not good. He has gone on a long journey. Oh, he's left her alone, and now she can act any way she wants. He took his purse filled with money and will not be home till full moon. Okay, so we have plenty of time. We can do this. There's no danger. And it's in the dark, so no one will know. And we have all the food we want, and it will be so wonderful. Oh, it's going to be great. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. And this young man, he's being led by something besides his thinking, right? All at once, so in a surge, a rush, he followed her, like an ox going to the slaughter. The ox doesn't know where it's going, right? Oh, farmer's got a nice place to visit. Not so nice. Like a deer stepping into a noose. Just lightly stepping and then till an arrow pierces his liver. Like a bird darting into a snare. Often killed by the snare with birds, little knowing it will cost him his life. Going off with the adulteress, eagerly, in a rush, in a surge of emotion, kills you. So 24. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are a mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down to the chambers of death. And he's not only speaking here about the act of adultery, he's speaking here about this whole notion of hedonism, of seeking pleasure in the moment, and of deception, of not living faithfully, but living selfishly for your own desires, of using others for your own pleasure, and not being content with what you have. All those things mentioned here in this wonderful picture language, describing this woman's life and how atrocious it is, and then how she guides man after man into these same lifestyles. So this all leads to the grave. When we don't follow God's design, as he said in the thou shalt not covet, but we seek after things which he hasn't given. When we're not satisfied with our house that he's put us in, and the life, the vocation that he would have us lead, this doesn't mean that we don't seek to further ourselves in our business, or we don't have ambition, but it is saying that we need to thank God and be content that he has given us at this time what is good, and what is good for us and good for those around us. This young man, he wants something that's not his, and he wants something beyond what God has given. And he moves foolishly when deception is likely at night, and he falls into her trap of hedonism. That's the end of chapter 7. Next time we'll talk about wisdom in chapter 8.